Hey, everybody, coming in from the live stream. It's me, Ben and Darcy from the Scarecrow Radio podcast. We are here today to talk with a legendary, is that a word we should use?
Yeah, he's legendary.
A legendary cult filmmaker, Jeff Krulik. He produced and directed films like Heavy Metal Parking Lot, Tales of Bel Air at Bowie is his newest feature.
Ernest Borgnine on the Bus.
Dozens of other projects, many of which we have on his very own shelf here at Scarecrow. So here is our interview with Jeff Krulik. I watched Led Zeppelin Played Here and your recent film Tales of Bel Air at Bowie recently. And those seem to have been shot around the same time, but released, a few years apart. Is that typical of your work?
Yeah, I mean, generally more or less. I mean, I'm perpetually overwhelmed and distracted. And then you add in the current environment of just immediate, flood of information coming at you from all over the place, in this day and age. So, most of the time when I'm working on something to really get it finished or, across anything resembling a finish line, or at least into some shape, I need to have a screening, I need a target, like a screening that's on the calendar, even though something might not be ready or finished. So often I need to have that scheduled somehow to really just get what I'm working on done. It doesn't have to be a finished product, but something that's screenable, a preview, or maybe it would be a premiere, but I just need the deadline, and that it just helps. So in regards to the two most recent films, although I wonder if, everything blurs so much to me, but yeah, the two most recent that were of any kind of heft or consequence were the featured documentaries Led Zeppelin Played Here and the documentary about the hometown I grew up in, my hometown rather, Bowie, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. That was, a Levitt development, the builder William Levitt. But that was kind of a real personal project. But the other ones, well, Led Zeppelin Played Here, I did start that around 2009. And so you're right, Ben, they both did start around the same time. And I think with regard to that film, I just wanted to have have it ready for, I'm a big advocate of anniversaries, or I just love anniversaries. To kind of peg to a screening, a film premiere. They're just very marketable. And in the case of Led Zeppelin Played Here, there was a specific, it was bracketed by inaugurations. And because the Richard Nixon inauguration in 1969 factors into the film, the storyline. And that's when Led Zeppelin allegedly played this concert, which is considered a phantom concert, in their first concert in the Washington, D.C. area, where only 50 people showed up in a rec center gymnasium. And it just has become folklore. I guess that was also a personal story, too, something just for this region where I live, Maryland. And it's had some resonance outside of the area, which I'm grateful for. But the inauguration factored into it. So I actually, when I decided to do the film, I got press around President Obama's first inauguration, because that's when we had the reunion at this community center. That was in 2009. So the press was around January 2009. And that's when we really kind of got a lot of ink and a lot of attention. Not as much as President Obama, but we got some coverage to tie in with the inauguration theme. So cut to 4 years later, I've got another inauguration. So I'm like, well, gee, this is a good hook to then set up a screening. And that's what then propelled me to finish the film really in 4 years, which is, kind of a record for me. Although 4 years, I will say though, it was a preview screening. The copyright on the film is 2013, I believe, because the film really did take shape and we did unveil it, and premiere it, or preview it rather. And then it took another year or two even to kind of get it to the finished state that it's in now. But we were having screenings and, I was fortunate to get into a few festivals. So overall, we really didn't get the completed version till a couple of years later. So it was like 4 to 6 years. And then I think for the 10-year anniversary of the concert, that was in 2019. So that would be 10 years later. I made DVDs. Just in time for the format to be somewhat, if not totally obsolete. So, but I still wanted to have a physical copy. And that's what I did. And then but the Bowie film did take 10 years. And I kind of started that one around the time of my 30th high school reunion, because I was actually looking for material about this community to kind of just give out. I went to the local museum to see what they had for this development, this suburban development. And they really didn't have a lot. They had like 1 or 2 file boxes. And I thought, gee, there's something here that needs to be documented. Plus, that's where I first read about this German film crew, this footage. And I do archival research. And so I'm familiar with the value of footage and interested in historic footage. And when I heard about a film crew that went to the town in 1965 and filmed, because this is something, these days, everything's documented. You've got a camera in your back pocket with the phone. So people, there's just an endless, infinite, quantum, just, unbelievable amount of footage being documented and recorded and saved. And, but back then, like when I was doing my Led Zeppelin Played Here research and the Bel Air at Bowie research, there wasn't a lot of footage. So, and that's kind of challenging. And I like the challenge of trying to find something that you could use, visually in a film, a documentary, when there's not much. But when I read about this German film crew documenting a family in the town, I said, I've got to find this footage. And it took 2 years to find it. Oh. Actually, wait a second. I'm sorry. Yeah, once I had I recruited a German colleague in archival research, and she helped me find it. But once we located where it could be, there was, it just took a long time to convince them that they had it. And then we had to hire somebody to go find it. And then when I got it, it was gold, but I didn't translate it right away. And then when it was translated with my friend a couple of years later, it was like just really went to, just the stratosphere. It was just perfect for what I had in mind. But finding it was a challenge, and it did take several years to do that. But I loved that challenge, and to be able to find it was amazing.
I Googled it last night because I watched it. And I was like, I really want to watch this full documentary. And I just Googled it and looked for like maybe a minute. And I was like, I'm just going to ask Jeff where he found it. So that's really funny that it was that much of an ordeal.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's Suburbia. It's called Suburbia USA. You won't find it anywhere. Well, number one, I keep it pretty much, just within the framework of my film, because it's like gold. And most of it, like half of it is about the town I grew up in, and the other half is about, the development of suburbia. And I'm probably going to translate the rest of that and see what I can do with it, because it is amazing documentation of, but there's so much in this case. I mean, it was in a television archive in Germany, but, it just required you're a detective doing detective work. And again, I like to do that. I actually get hired to do that because I live near the National Archives and Library of Congress. And so I've been part of a local community that does archival historic footage research. But a lot of that you can do now anywhere from, as long as you have a computer. But yeah, that footage is neat. It's really neat. And I've yet to find out who made that song. Little Box is perfect. And it's an old Malvina Reynolds folk song recorded by scores of people, Pete Seeger. Just, you can find lots of versions of it, but the version used in this film, I don't know who made it. I don't know who did that. We haven't figured it out yet. But anyway, yeah, it's neat. I want to find more footage. I'm doing a sequel, by the way. I'm actually doing in fact, at the end of the version that's online, because there is a version, I was fortunate to get it on Maryland Public Television. But this came after I actually did manufacture a DVD, which again, format, good luck selling them. Although people do like, there's community, and I'm sure you, of course, thrive on that physical media, which we'll talk about. And it's very important to still have that. And I'm a big believer in it. And I love having something tangible, but so many people don't. But there are people that do. And so when I made this, I knew I wanted to make a copy. And when I send it out to Scarecrow, which I told John I will, it's actually 72 minutes long. So the version online is 60 minutes. We cut that for Maryland Public Television for their 60-minute hour. Well, of course, an hour, 60 minutes, excuse me. It was a television hour that's 60, that you fit right into. They didn't, it just worked. 60 minutes was what they needed. But my DVD is 72 minutes. So there's extra, including at the end where we just kind of threw everything into it that we didn't get to include originally. And we say, we're going to make a sequel. Stay tuned for more Tales of Bel Air at Bowie. Hopefully I can find some more archival footage, because that's what really makes the film. I mean, otherwise it's a lot of talking heads.
Yeah, the German film is really cool. The title shot for it that's on that mirror where they put that is so cool. I filmed that with my phone. I love that shot.
That's neat. Yeah, it's funny. I never thought, but you're right. I mean, that is pretty remarkable. I wonder.
I love that shot so much.
Oh, cool. I'm glad. That's neat because it's also done with whatever minimal effects they had in 1965. I guess. Yeah. Did they must have shot a mirror, you think, or what did you?
That's what, because it looks like they flop it a little bit, so it distorts the image after a minute. It really cool. Have you been in contact with the people who made that film? Are they aware of you?
Well, just the archive that I got it from, because those people, I'm sad to say, probably are not with us anymore, because that was made in 1965, and they did it. It was a television show for this German network, a documentary. And I don't even know really the series. I mean, I have the paperwork somewhere, but it was done for television. And it was the people that did it, they're not Googleable that I could find, I mean, Andre Karb, I think. I mean, look, I can't even find the name of the artists who did the group that did that version of Little Boxes. They didn't credit them in the film. So I was just happy to find the film. And, and that was a bit of an ordeal. So, it would be neat to know more about it. I would like to know how the film, how it came to be made. It was kind of it's just speculation that, because nobody's around to kind of tell us, oh yeah, the community let them, just decided to do it because such and such. The speculation is that William Levitt, the developer, Levitt wanted to build in Germany. He had plans to build in Germany, and so this might have been a way to curry some favor. Although it wasn't a very flattering portrait of suburbia.
Not all.
Yeah. Did you either of you grow up in something similar, or
I grew up in a small town, but not in a neighborhood, but not anything like that. Definitely not.
Me neither.
Say, because that was suburban. That was kind of it's the archetypal 1960s suburban community. Suburbia really flourished as we know it in that time period. It's post-war, baby boomer. I mean, and Levitt, William Levitt was a pioneer in that. He's really called the father of suburbia. Of course, there's some, controversy in regards to, racial issues because it was, he would not sell to black families. And that's, of course, covered in the film. But he did, really pioneer this landscape that I have to say was a bit constricting. I grew up there and in that town, and I don't have I loved it. I mean, it was fine. I certainly don't have any problem or regret from growing up, but it was you had a pretty, it just was, you're isolated and, you're kind of just cut off from a lot of things that would be going on, say, in a city or, and that's what people wanted, though. That's what a lot of people wanted it. Now people, I wouldn't want that necessarily.
Have you heard of the neighborhood that Disney World has in Florida? That's like a suburbia thing where it's like really manicured. There's all these rules. It still exists.
Is that right? You know what? It doesn't. I know. It rings a bell. I wish I could come up with the name of it.
Yeah, same. I can't remember. I just remember reading about it and being like, why would someone want to live here other than that they're really into Disney for whatever reason? But watching your movie reminded me of that.
You're
Definitely.
right. I'll have to find out. That's interesting. I do know about that. And did it succeed? Has it succeeded or?
I have no idea. I don't remember. I just remember reading that they have like fake snow and stuff in the winter. Like, yeah, seems like a pretty wild place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because the thing that, I will say when I started my film, the research, my original intent was to really focus on what it was like for young people to land in that kind of environment, people that were teenagers, because when my family moved in and my parents still live in the house that I grew up in, they, I was, they were in their 20s and I was 2, I was not even 2. And so that was all I knew. And I developed a fascination with what it was like for teenagers or people that were just kind of coming into your own, to kind of be planted like as original residents there, kind of show up in this kind of cookie cutter, homogenous, somewhat empty, landscape. And against the backdrop of what was going on in the 1960s, I was really curious about that. And in fact, that's why the fellow in the film, Pete Novick, who was the kind of precocious journalist covering the teen club, who then went on to become the drug columnist for the Washington Free Press, the underground newspaper. He was one of the first, probably that might have even been, it was concurrent with the research that I was doing for my high school reunion. And I saw there wasn't anything really that they had collected, but it was also, I've always had an interest in the counterculture movement and certainly in the area I grew up in. And so I was interviewing Pete about, his work with the Washington Free Press. And when I asked him where he grew up or and he said, well, I'm from New Jersey, but I really spent my, formative years growing up in Bowie, Maryland. I couldn't believe it. My eyes just popped out of my head. And that was where I'm like, wow, what was it like for you who became what you are? Well, you're from Bowie? And that just floored me. And that's what was another kind of eureka moment and how I had to really document this. And that's why Pete's, one of the, I included Pete in the film, who was Fuman Zybar, the drug columnist, eventually. But my original focus was just on what it was like for young people. But clearly when the German footage, when I found that, it really kind of took on a whole nother dimension. And I realized that was important to really focus on because it was gold. It was just great. I wanted to put every frame of it in this. And also I interviewed Al Galato, the patriarch of that family, that you could imagine it must have been just like the film Real Life. Have you ever seen Albert Brooks's Real Life?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like they drive this family crazy. Albert, following them, documenting them, which is kind of based on the PBS show American Family, The Loud Family. But that's the series that was it was just doing the same thing. It was in the 70s, following a family. So here these people were doing it in the 60s, and in just 2 weeks, it drove them crazy. And I was fortunate to interview Al Galato before I found the footage. So he's just telling me all this stuff about the experience, like years before I actually was able to then see it and kind of match it up to everything he was saying. So it was great. Just a real, fortuitous.
Oh, that's really cool. I would have never guessed that you didn't find that person because you had seen that film.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. Even the way it's presented in the movie in your film.
Interesting.
Too.
It's funny because, I should send you both the article because it was really an article. That's how I found out about it. I guess this is a little unclear in my narrative here about it, because when I told you, and I'm sorry about that because this is really a key thing. When I was looking for information about the town for my reunion, you put together a souvenir book or whatever. At least we used to. I don't know what people do now.
I don't know yet.
Yeah. Is that right? Well, this is my 30th. I just had my 40th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I always go though. They're great fun.
Yeah.
High school reunions are terrific. But at least for me, some people didn't have a great experience, and I understand that in high school. But when they brought out the real, 2 boxes of what they had collected, which was not much of anything, to show me what they had about this town that they had, collected or saved. Luckily, there was one scrapbook that a secretary put together for from the city hall there, like in 1965. So I'm just looking through this scrapbook, and there's an article about this film crew in the town and covering this family, the Galato family. So that's how I knew about it, because I read this article in the local newspaper that had just happened to be clipped in this scrapbook. If that hadn't been there, I never would have known about it. And so, of course, in my head, it was like the light bulb went on. I've got to find this footage. And that was how it all then unfolded from there. I should have told you that earlier, because that is an important part. And that's why I was able to find, the Galato family. Denise Galato, one of the daughters, was my student teacher in 6th grade. She taught so I knew who she was. And she was, several years older than me. I was however old you are, it's in 6th grade. And she was at college, getting a degree in education. So I knew the Galato family, and it wasn't hard to reach. They were still there. So that's how I was able to do the interview with Al Galato.
So, okay, I guess I said that because there's the shot of the sign in front of their house, and it almost seems matched. Did you get that shot first, and then it just happened to also be in the? No, the shot was that. So I didn't shoot the sign when I interviewed Al. I didn't know it was in the film. When I saw it in the film, I was like, man, that sign is still there. I mean, the house is still there. Family still lives in the house. Al sadly has passed away, but their family still has the house, and that sign is still there, which is neat. So really, before I finished the film, I just went and shot the sign again. Yeah. And it matched. It's so good. I love that part. It's really good.
Thanks. This is cool.
Okay, so we should probably talk a little bit about Heavy Metal Parking Lot.
Oh yeah, no, definitely keep it. Look at the clock, because I'll just run on and on.
This is great so far. I hope you're having as good a time as we are. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. It's really nice to be able to talk about Led Zeppelin Played here and about this Tales of Bel Air at Bowie because, oftentimes the films, I just don't, all my films I like them all, some maybe, well, I shouldn't say some better than others, but it really kind of just always up. Sometimes you just like right now, Heavy Metal Parking Lot's being, talked about because we're about to celebrate our 35th anniversary. And, but it's neat that, and that you're interested in these other films.
Oh, I actually have with me, I was going to do this up later, but I have the Scarecrow copies of all these fun
oh my
VHS
goodness.
So
neat.
Yeah, just speaking of your other films, like besides Heavy Metal Parking Lot, we got a lot to talk about.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're also signed by you, which is
that's
fun.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing that. That's great.
Yeah.
I remember coming to Scarecrow. It was impressive. I was in Seattle for a screening. Was it at the Northwest Film?
Oh, yeah, the Northwest Film Forum. Mm-hmm.
Jamie Keeling brought me. It was neat. It was in 2003. Wow. Does that sound right? Maybe. But I think then I was, yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was just thinking in my head. That was when I went to Scarecrow. And also I'm friends with a guy, David Wingo, who used to work there. There might be some folks who remember his name.
Shout out to David.
Yeah.
What?
Shout out to David Wingo.
David Wingo. I'm sorry.
I hope they're listening.
Yeah, David. I'm sure I knew other people from Scarecrow. Zach Carlson, did he work at Scarecrow? Seems like people from the Northwest all maybe.
Yeah, there's been some people. Ben and I are actually their newest employees. So
really,
yeah. So besides like the core people who've been there forever, like we don't know too many of the people, but that's part of the fun. So
that's
great.
We
hear names go around all the time, though.
That's cool. Well, I'm impressed that it's still, and thrilled, of course, that it's still in, operation, that you still have physical media, that you're still renting physical media. And there's still interest in it. And is it still as big as I remember? Is the stores enormous?
Well, the space is probably the same size, although it's definitely been shuffled around a bunch. But the collection is probably. It could be twice the size, maybe, since 2003.
Did you know you have your own section?
I did see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That you still have it. That's very, very flattering. That's very, very, flattering, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much to everybody at Scarecrow. I have the book. I have that Scarecrow book. That was. Yes. I'm in that. It was. It was neat just to see such a tremendous operation and a real love for, film and video and just sharing everything, and that's great. Everything. And just, even places now that, claim they have everything online, they don't.
No.
So the idea of having a place where there's everything is just so, and gratifying, and also that it's available to the public, that people can come. Do you rent through the mail, or is that too much trouble? Or is
Absolutely, we do.
Oh, no kidding.
You could rent from us today.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. Nothing too rare though, but yeah.
Okay.
So.
It might not come back. Yeah, right. It's cheaper to pay the fine, if you get something.
Yeah.
Yeah.